Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. This is everything in bloom on the 8th. I'm filming it on the 7th, so I'm cheating a bit. Mainly because tomorrow on the 8th I'm out for a fair bit of the day and I didn't want the hassle of messing about with this type of video, which tends to take a little bit longer than some of the others because of pop-ups and things. At least I don't have to pop up the blooms. Okay, right, where to start then? I got this one out because it lives somewhere where I can't film it. So we'll start with Dracula Bella. Only one bloom left out of the two, but it's lasting quite well. Let's see if I can turn this up so as we can get a better look. Lovely markings on this. Beautiful Dracula, basically. I've got another one similar that hasn't bloomed yet, and I'd like to get Vampira, but it's too fussy. I mean, in this environment, Dracula's are fussy by nature, simply because of the temperatures I'm going to get as the better weather comes. But to pick that one that's even more fussy would seem a bit silly. So we won't do that, even though it might be nice to have. Right, buried down in here, I've got two Restrepias open, which I won't be able to get very close to, but they keep getting ignored. Now that's one of my large Restrepias. It's the one I've probably had the longest. It came from Burnham's originally, and that's Falkenbergii, a species. And it has stunning colours. As I say, I don't know how close I'm going to be able to get handheld, but something like that. And then the one next to it, if I just swing the camera across, you'll see the difference in the size straight away. This is one of the Eric Young Foundation's own hybrids, which the name is of which has just totally gone out of my head at the moment. Pop up. But anyway, very attractive markings on that one. The stripes are in fact made of rows of tiny little spots. So yeah, there's quite a few blooms lurking on that one at the moment. And Falkenbergii is constantly in bloom, a few at a time. Never seems to do a mass blooming, but it's nearly always got blooms on it, or just about to be on it. Right, so that's that lot buried down there. And then if we come up here, we've got the Oncidium Sweet Sugar, which is now called something else. It's been moved from the Oncidium set. Well, I can't be bothered to mess about with the new name, so I'm just going to keep the old one, Oncidium Sweet Sugar. Very poor spike for what it's capable of doing. You know, I mean, I've seen sweet sugar spikes with 30 blooms on, as opposed to whatever I've got here, 2, 4, 6, 8. But this is a recovering plant. You know, I mean, this is the first time I've let it bloom for some time, or got it to the stage where it could bloom, let's put it that way. And it's got a very good root system, so despite being a small plant, it's got the backup of a root system, so I let it bloom. And the Laelia Red Velvet comes into the same category. It's a recovering plant, but it's recovered in such a way that the latest growth was allowed to bloom simply because it's got a really good root system on it now. So it's got the backup it needs. These blooms are going. They're not going to be with us that much longer, but they've been a lovely splash of red while they've been out. Quite fragrant, sort of citrusy, lemony type smell. Difficult to say exactly. And not all day. It seems to come and go. I think it depends on the light intensity. Alright, so that's everything there. Nothing on there. Nothing on there. Nothing down below. Apart from, that's not a bloom, but the eagle-eyed amongst you will see blooms to come. I only noticed that yesterday when I got that out to water it. So, coming soon, down the line. And then up here on the Cattleya front, we've got this No ID, which we had quite a good look at recently on the grounds that the bloom had some features that some people might have thought were a bit virusy, when in fact it's nothing of the sort. That's exactly how it's supposed to be. This was going to go in the bin. It saved its bacon by actually blooming, and I think I may now keep it and try and force it to produce more than one growth by cutting the rhizome. It is a good bloom, and if it was a healthy plant, 2 or 3 blooms like that on a spike would be quite a show. So it might be worth preserving, giving it another chance. It's never going to look, well, it's not going to look like a good plant for several years, but you know, you can ignore the plant and just look at the blooms for a while. The BC Mackay, now I'm not sure that strictly speaking is still called that, because the BC bit is Brassicattlea, which is Brassivola, and a lot of those have been moved to something else. So it may not be a BC Mackay anymore, but again, I can't be bothered with all the name changing. This is doing quite well. The plant isn't doing as well as it ought to, and I need to look into that. A lot of the centre of the plant, the oldest part of the plant, is starting to die back. Well, that's natural, and it's heading off in sort of 2 separate directions, really. Whoops, whack the blooms about, why don't you? But it's not as vigorous as it ought to be, so I'll have to look into that. But it's not growing at the moment, it's blooming. I mean, there's no new growths pushing out at the moment. It's going to get the blooms over first, and they're going to last a long time. It's worth noting that by the time these blooms are over, they will be almost pure white, and they're nothing like the depth of colour they were when they opened. They really do fade from a deep colour through to virtually pure white. Over a long period of time though, it's not like one of the quick things that happens. And the bright orange Cattleya is looking good, but sad to say, that spike's going over. And I'm not sure that's been open that long. I thought this lasted a lot longer than that. I don't remember knocking, I was just going to say I haven't knocked the spike and broken it. No. But I mean, we've got 3 other spikes on here. I mean, this is a good cluster. There's still good colour on here. And the other 2, this was one where we did cut the rhizome and it pushed out 2 extra new growths farther back, which are the 2 weaker ones. But the next ones won't be. So once this blooming's over, this should produce 4 new growths, and they should all get up to full size like this and produce a good cluster of blooms on the top rather than just a few. But I mean, that's like starting a young plant again when you push them back like that. Their first new growths from a forced growth pattern like that is normally going to be smaller than normal, but the next one should be okay. So that's the Cattleyas up there. Coming along here, we've got this one has already dropped most of its blooms. Effectively, it's over. I better go careful touching these or they'll fall off right in front of us. But this is the little lemon drops crossed with, I always forget, Encyclia vitellina. And these blooms have been out absolutely ages. Absolutely ages. And I did notice when I watered this, the next new growth is coming out. And it's not coming out from the latest growth, it's coming out from the base of the one before. So who knows, it might push out too. Because in theory, if that's pushing out its new growth from the previous growth, not the latest one, when it finishes blooming, may well start a new growth. And to get 2 would be brilliant. With blooms lasting that long and a colour that I really like, that could be a pretty good show next time round. We shall see. Right, Tolumnias then. Tolumnia peach. I have to get back a bit for this one because all 3 spikes here are all on the same plant. And quite honestly, this is looking good enough to go to the Orchid Society tomorrow. And as plants go, it's an easy one to take. It's not big and bulky or anything like that. It would just need the mount set up in a pot in such a way that the blooms will be displayed nicely. I could take a stand in, I suppose, and just hang it. I shall see. But anyway, Tolumnia peach, real colour changer. Starts off just yellow and red, then gradually progresses and the peach colour emerges in various guises. If you look on this one, the colour on this particular bloom is deep peach, and yet on here it's pale with spots, and again pale, and here hardly any at all with spots. So it's quite variable, and all equally attractive, quite honestly, although obviously the ones with the deep peach, that's where it gets its name from. And then the other one over here is, I've forgotten. I was just going to say, and I'm sure it won't have a tag. Most of the Tolumnias are tagless, waiting for blooms. But this one over here has got 2 spikes on it, and I'll have to get up high to be able to see this one. It's just come to me. Golden sunray sunrise. Just suddenly got there. I don't know where that came from. But this one, again, a bit of a colour changer, and it does get a tinge around the base, but nowhere near as dominant as the Tolumnia peach that we've just looked at. It does basically stay the deep red with the yellow, and it's a good colour combination. Got very, very pale yellow around the edges near the top. Very, very delicate colouring, that one. And the other spike on it, the blooms have mostly gone except for the last one, but we've got 2 branches, so that will come back into bloom later. And I suspect this one will branch as well as these blooms start to age. So that's the 2 Tolumnias. I'll get down on, actually I won't get down on the floor, I'll pick it up. Ugh. This is my only Phalaenopsis open at the moment, and I'll have to put this somewhere where it'll stay still. Let's try there. That's got it, because it hangs the wrong way round. This basically does. It's not going to work, is it? All right, we'll bend the hook then. Always bend it back again in a minute. Right, so this little Phalaenopsis is down to its last 2 blooms on this spike. The spike may extend, but this has had a set of blooms on this spike for some considerable time, and the latest one, this one here, is much, much better coloured than any of the previous ones. Why? I don't know, but the purple on it is brighter, the spots are more defined, and the coloration on the lip is more pronounced. So this particular bloom is the best bloom it's produced. The other set of whatever it was, 4 or 5, were nowhere near as good as that. Now it's only a tiny bloom, it's not fragrant, but it's a miniature Phalaenopsis, that's its size. So it's a compact plant. And I do like that. Delicate. Nice cross section as well. Right, that's that little one. I've got 2 yellow twinkles out at the moment. I've got the one up here that's mounted. This was a couple of little pieces that broke off when I repotted it. I had a couple of rotten pseudobulbs on the main plant, and to get them off, the plant ended up in more pieces than one, let's put it that way. And I thought I'll stick a couple of these small bits on a mount and see if they do okay. Well, you know, the piece down the bottom is just an old bulb and a young growth. I didn't expect that to bloom, but then I wasn't sure the top one was going to bloom. But the latest growth did. And twinkles can bloom on quite young plants, so that is useful. So that's looking good, still on the go. The other twinkle down here in the pot, that's my cold coffee. Actually, that's still warm. This is the what was left of the main plant when it got split. So the 2 little pieces went on a mount, and this one went in here. And it did push up a couple of growths, not very good ones, but they both bloomed. So you know that'll grow on much better during the next growing season. And then tucked up in here is my only Paphiopedilum, in bloom, or even likely to bloom actually. I'm not sure either of the other two will. Looking good, simplistic as Paphiopedilums go. It's got all the shape and traits without the colours. It's just simply green and white. And for me, that makes it as attractive as the multicoloured things with all sorts of purples and browns and deep greens and stuff. It's still got the hairy bits and the warty bits and the lip, slipper lip. It's got everything, and it's a nice profile. The outline of it is good. You know, I like it. Simple hybrid, that one, not a complex one. The Dendrobium behind it, Latorrea type, Alexandrae, and unfortunately it's going. But it has been here a very, very long time. These were the first two to open, so they're going to go first. And then this spike up here, I think it opened about a week and a half later, so we should have these a little bit longer. But I can already see, if you look here, the green on the back turns yellow, and that means it's on the way. So this bud here is okay, this one's just starting, and this one you can see has got that yellow tinge to it. So they're not going to be around a huge amount longer, but it's done well, and it's my only Latorrea type that didn't suffer the same way that the rest did. A heat wave followed by lousy winter care on my part, far too soggy, lost quite a lot of their roots, followed by another heat wave the following season last year. So they've had a hard time, my Latorreas. This is the only one that managed to pull through. So, okay. The Cymbidium, one spike's already gone, and this one's just starting to go. So it's not going to be here too much longer. And then once those spikes are gone, that one will be due for a repot, and that'll be fun. If you search through my videos, you'll find a single video about this Cymbidium, which was when I repotted it last. I think it was something like 2014, something like that, and it's never been repotted since. It needs doing, you know. Especially as it lives outside through the summer months and gets rained on and wind and sun and all sorts. Gets weathered, we'll call it weathered. But yeah, that's due a repot. Some of the old bulbs can come off, and it's probably go back in the same size pot. And what I'm hoping for this time is that with a rejuvenated media, yeah, and perhaps a root trim, the roots on the Cymbidiums are pretty vigorous, and they respond from trimming by just bursting out all over the place. So with that extra vigour, I'm hoping to get 2 new bulbs this year, because the previous years I've only ever had 1. But they push up, it does push up 2 spikes each time. So if I could get 2 new growths, who knows, we might have 4 spikes. Or 3. 3 would be good. But 4 would be brilliant. Right, coming over here, let's have another slurp of my coffee. It is still warm. Now this is I believe a Sotoanum cross. It's an Alisara, and it's Tahitian Dancer. Now it didn't have that label on it when I got it, but people suggested that's probably what it was, and I had a good look at the pictures on the internet available. And I agree. I'm quite happy to give it that name. If anybody wants to shoot it down, it's up to them. But the only time that's liable to happen would be at a show where one of the judges actually owns the real thing and can see the difference, because that difference is going to be very, very slight. But I'm happy to stick with that name. It's nearly finished now. It's on its last spike. And you can see the old spikes die back incredibly quickly on this. So as soon as the blooms are off, it turns a straw colour and it's gone. And the sooner those spikes come off, the sooner it will come back into growth, the sooner the new growths can get going and be fed and watered well. Heavy on the watering when they're in vigorous growth, and feed, and it will come back into bloom all the quicker. Yeah, so the sooner you can get the new growths going, the better. Now, not all Oncidium types respond that way. Some of them have got like a set time scale built into them, and taking the blooms off early, they seem to take no notice at all and just carry on as though nothing different had happened. But there are Oncidiums around that the sooner the spikes are off, the sooner it triggers the new growths, and the sooner they're back into bloom. Right, tucked up here, if I give this a shake, blooms will fall off. This is the tiny Twinkle, and this is on its last legs now, but it's still got active blooms on it. I'm taking these spikes off as soon as they're finished because I want this to come back into growth as soon as possible. Oh, yeah, it already is. Yeah, I can see some new growths already starting, like there. There's a new one starting there. And strangely enough, the growth that's coming out from the base of is still in bloom. Yeah, so this just can't wait to get back into growth, this one. And I can see others. Yeah, there's several starting already. So in theory, this is going to get a third as big again this year, because the bulbs that have just bloomed are last year's growths, and each one of those should push up at least one new growth. Some of them will push up two. So we should get quite a large plant by the end of this year. It's going to be off the mount. It's going to be hanging off the edges soon. But I don't mind. You know, the main base of its root system is bang in the middle. Plenty of moss on there. Might have to refresh the moss this year. Depends. It's one of the mounts that gets very wet because there's a lot of moss. And it holds its moisture quite a long time because of the sheer amount of moss that's on there. And in its growing season, that's important. If that had skimpy moss, not too much of it, it would dry too quickly when it's in active growth. So that's why it's heavy on the moss. It's an Oncidium type. Now we're going to have some fun because the next one I want to get out is buried up in here with the fan. But it is in bloom, despite the plant being atrocious. I'm almost embarrassed to show this, but this is what happened to my Latorreas. They just nearly died. We've got, let's put it down flat, we've got canes like this that are just, they've had it. They have no substance at all. They need trimming off. Now this one has attempted to put up quite a few new growths, and nearly all of them have failed. And if you look at the size the cane should be, that's not good. But it does have some roots, and I think that as soon as we get some warmer weather, it's going to come back into growth and grow some normal size canes, or that, well, it's a hope rather than anything. And I've lost the tag for this, but I'm pretty sure that this is Polysema crossed with aberrans from memory. I think. I'm pretty sure. Typical Latorrea type blooms, although small in this case. Patterning on the back, lovely little spots, very delicate, and nowhere near as much colour around the front of the blooms. So I'm just trying to get it to stand up here so that we can see the front of the blooms. Very little patterning on the front, and there's quite a few Latorreas come into that category. Lovely veining on the inside of the lip, and the spotting that you see on the petals and sepals really is showing through from behind. That coloration's not really on the front of the bloom. It just sort of stains through from the back of the plant. Nonetheless, I wasn't expecting blooms on a manky old cane like that. There's no substance in that cane at all. And I need this to get back into growth, get some decent canes on the go. That will also start a new root system as well. The root system it's got for the amount of leaves it's trying to support is good enough for now, but I need that to come back into growth. So hopefully that needs nothing more than the warmer weather, and once it starts to come back into growth and that warmer weather gets here, with the warmer weather comes the brighter light, And the last thing that needs is bright light. So that'll need to come down from this high shelf up here, because that's far too close to the roof. So we will get that down. And another mouthful of coffee. Last but not least, I could look up and say I shouldn't be filming Laelia anceps because the blooms have gone over. Yeah, it's supposed to be things that are in bloom, not things that are about to drop on the floor. But luckily, it did produce 2 spikes. And this spike opened second. But nonetheless, it's fading. It's starting to go. So strictly speaking, this is the only bloom that's still in a reasonable condition to be classed as still in bloom. And even this one's starting to go. So yeah, in the very near future, I'd say 3-4 days maximum, these blooms are going to be gone. And then we can get at the plant and see what needs to be done. Because that gap between the bottom of that new growth and the media, you get out of the way. You're going to go under the hedge, you are. Getting on my nerves. Yeah, so the gap between that new growth and the media is far too great. And if that new growth comes out where it should do, here at the base, in fact there's the dormant eye there, it's going to be out over the edge of the pot. The other new growth is here. It's already over the edge of the pot. So this has got to come out of this pot and have something done with it. And I won't be deciding what until I get it out of the pot. And perhaps we can get rid of the scale as well. There's only a couple. And the fact that they come off that easy, they're probably dead anyway. Right, so it'll be a shame, but given that I missed a year on this one due to, well, basically, I read and spoke to people physically about Laelia anceps being a cooler grower relative to other Cattleya types, on the grounds it grew a bit higher up, so it had cooler air and it actually liked that cooler atmosphere. So in my infinite wisdom, I took it down from the Cattleya shelves and put it down there where it got the draft straight from the inlet fan, so it had a lovely flow of cooler air. But what it didn't have was the bright light. So it went for a year. It produced 2 lovely new growths that failed to bloom. So it missed a year. So last growing season it went back up on high where it got the good light, because the shelves, they might get light in from the sides when the sun is lower in the sky, but when it's high in the sky, the brightest light is on the top shelves, because it not only comes in through the sides, it comes in through the roof as well. It's the beauty of having a clear roof and not being enclosed. So anyway, we missed a year, so we got 2 nice growths this year, last season, to produce this 2 nice spikes with 3 blooms on each. That's not maximum. Laelia anceps can get up probably 5 or even 6 on a good spike on a really mature, heading up to specimen size plant, but I was happy with 3 on each, especially as I didn't get any the year before. And I don't know, it's still a favourite. It's just something about the colour. It's the shape as well. It's the way these 2 sepals droop down, almost like a moustache. They're not even. You see the top one and these 2, they're not they're not evenly spaced. These 2 are much closer together. As I say, they look almost like a moustache. And I mean, the colour in the lip is just gorgeous. And patterning and everything. Okay, I don't think I've missed anything this time. I usually end up missing 1. Ah yes, I see it. Hiding. Not that it's anything spectacular, but buried in here is a Dendrobium. Come on, brain. It's gone. Totally gone. Phalaenopsis type. I'll get there in a minute. And these are not very good blooms. I mean, this bloom's opened with some brown patches on it, And this one isn't opening, it's just sitting there. It's been sat like that for some time now. It's not a strong plant. And if I just move this Tolumnia a minute, the other two buds on that spike, one of them's already gone, that's blasted, and the other one doesn't want to open. That's not a happy plant, far from it. I don't see any new growth either, so that, whoops, that plant may be on its last legs. So drop your best Tolumnia on the floor, why don't you? Luckily they are incredibly resilient orchids. And this is the only thing that annoys me with multiple spikes, is blooms from one spike getting tangled up with another one. There we go. No damage done, despite getting a bit of water off the floor. Yeah, so that Phalaenopsis type Dendrobium, the leaves are not good. The blooms are not good. It's not happy. Might have to go. It's nothing special. It's just got virtually no colour to it. It's just white, not large blooms. Tiny little bit of purple in the middle and greenish shades. Nothing special at all. So, and the those type of Dendrobiums have just never grown well for me for some reason. It's probably a bit too cold for them in the winter out here. The other one I've got is Thai Angel, which does grow a little bit better than that one. So that one, I've got two versions of that. One's in the Orchids to Go set, and the other one I'll keep. So anyway, so that's everything in bloom on the 8th. A little bit of deviation in places, but not much. And yes, we will be saying bye-bye to quite a bit soon. The tiny Twinkle will be gone soon. Tahitian Dancer will be gone. Dendrobium Alexandriae, the Cymbidium starting to go. Laelia anceps is on its way. This nice bright Cattleya here, that's going to be gone soon. I think it's dropped 4 blooms already. Those two have only got a day or two left to go. The big bright orange Cattleya up here is starting. This spike's going to start dropping blooms all over the floor in the next day or so. You can see the difference. Green, yellow. They're going to fall very soon. So, and I doubt if the Dracula is going to last too much longer, given that the other one came off a while back and this one didn't open a huge amount of time after. There's no sign of any more spikes on that, so I think it might have a bit of a rest from loads of aborted blooming spikes that it did all last year, and grow some new leaves, which it seems to be doing at the moment. Quite a few new growths up there. And again, the Nelly Isla is going to be gone soon, and Sweet Sugar's still looking good at the moment. I do believe that lasts a while, so we'll have that for a bit longer. So if you think about the amount that's going, it's going to look a bit bare in here for a while, and then it's going to be Dendrobium time, and we'll get, you know, the Noblies will probably be first, and then the winter resters, they'll all start kicking off, and a lot of them bloom starting end of March into April, some on into May, and in one particular case not until June. So we've got all those to come down the line. We'll see how we go. As I say, things come and go, and there will be periods where there's little. There's still quite a few Cattleyas with buds on though. You know, the buds are either still inside sheaths or just breaking out the top. So we have got some stuff to come in the Cattleya range. We'll see how we go. Right, I'll see you next time. Thanks for dropping by.